This is David Rovics with a song for today. One songwriter's take on the history of the world, one song at a time. Available wherever you get your podcasts. Ever since the Russian Revolution of 1917, the U.S. business elite was panicking about the specter of communism, especially because extreme inequality in the U.S. was making the specter a very popular one among American workers and others around the planet. There were a few years in the 1940s when the capitalist powers of the West made an alliance of convenience with the USSR, which was ultimately the main military power that defeated Nazi Germany. With that defeat, the alliance ended and the Cold War resumed. It wasn't really a very cold Cold War, however. In Korea, for example, millions of people were killed, mainly Koreans, but also lots of Chinese soldiers. Did you know the U.S. fought a war with China? Several, in fact. After the Cuban Revolution and the failed U.S. invasion of Cuba soon afterwards in what became known as the Bay of Pigs debacle, supporters of the revolution around the world, particularly in Cuba itself, had abundant reason to fear another invasion. The U.S. drove Cuba into the hands of the Soviets, who received their Cuban allies reluctantly. Ultimately, the Soviet Union and the United States made a secret agreement that the USSR would withdraw their nuclear missiles from Cuba if the U.S. withdrew their missiles from Turkey. But in October 1962, prior to this détente being reached, there was every indication that World War III was imminent. If the Soviet missiles in Cuba had been launched towards their targets in the U.S., that alone could have killed 100 million people. But Kennedy and his hawkish cabinet decided to set up a naval blockade, an act of war. With the blockade in effect, and the Soviet military known to be under orders to retaliate, a U.S. destroyer sent depth charges, explosives, into the water, threatening to destroy the submarine they were aimed at if it didn't surface and surrender. 2 of the 3 officers on the submarine were in favor of launching all of the missiles, as they had been ordered to do in a televised address by their president, Khrushchev, if they faced exactly such circumstances. But they needed the support of the 3rd officer on board, and he refused to give the order. His name was Vasili Arkhipov. He saved the world on October 27th, 1962. The Beach Boys were playing on the radio. The Beatles were singing Love Me Do. Lolita was playing in the cinemas. It was October 1962. Ken Kesey published One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. John Glenn orbited the Earth. Australia had just won the most gold medals at the Commonwealth Games in Perth. The boomers were just getting into high school. Dylan first sang Blowin' in the Wind. The U.S. Army had just started their war against the Viet Minh. On the day Vasili saved the world. If I Had a Hammer was in the Billboard charts, an Air Force jet crashed into the sea. The first black student had been admitted to Ole Miss University. Hewlett-Packard sold a personal computer, but it wouldn't really take off for a while. Jackie had just come back from a trip to India. Plunging necklines were the latest summer style. Algeria had just won her independence. Korea was rebuilding from the war. The Russian River had just flooded a couple of weeks before. On the day Vasili saved the world. The CIA was running Operation Mongoose, killing Cubans in their factories and streets.
the U.S. was gearing up for an invasion, still smarting from the Bay of Pigs defeat. The Soviets had sent missiles to Havana to protect themselves and their Cuban friends. The U.S. Navy blockaded Cuba's harbors, and there was no telling how this thing would end. Khrushchev got on TV to make it very clear Cuba was a sovereign state, and if our ships are attacked, we will retaliate. On the day Vasili saved the world. Vice Admiral Vasili Arkhipov was standing at his post on a Soviet Navy submarine. They were on patrol in international waters, one actor in a terrifying scene. They were out of radio contact deep beneath the water when the sub began to shake and crack. The captain said, "Arm the nuclear torpedoes. We're under attack." The Americans were bombing them, but in order to respond, 3 officers had to give the go. 2 were in agreement, but for some reason, the Vice Admiral said no. On the day Vasili saved the world. On the day Vasili saved the world.
This has been a Song for Today from David Rovics, making popular education popular again. If you go to davidrovics.com, you can hear lots of other episodes of this and other podcasts, see where I'm touring next, and get on my email list. You can also click on CSA there on my website and join my community-supported art program, which is mainly how I get by in the free streaming era. I hope to see you sometime soon again here on the internet or on the road and hopefully in the streets.